My name is Ashley Childs, and this is my final presentation for History 310, The Black Death. In this presentation, I'm going to be talking specifically about the dance of death and its influences on late medieval art and late medieval culture. And on this first slide, you can see a very cool image of the dance of death. So first I'm going to be talking about the dance of death woodcuts. You can see it on the left side of the screen. It was created in 1493, published in the Nuremberg Chronicle in Nuremberg, Germany. And it was created by an artist named Michael Wohlgemuth. The chronicle that it was published in was an illustrated encyclopedia of 15th century world events, often with a biblical emphasis. And certainly the Black Death would have been a very important thing to note in that chronicle, as it is in this illustration. So now I'm going to be talking about the significance of this artwork. What does the artwork show? When you're looking at the artwork, what exactly are we looking at? So it shows 5 skeletons. 3 of them are dancing, the ones on the far right, and one is playing music, the one on the far left. He's playing some kind of clarinet wind instrument. And at the bottom of the picture, one of them is in the process of being buried and is sort of reaching their arm up from the grave towards the other skeletons that are dancing on top of it. So what does the artwork represent? It represents a concept, an idea called the danse macabre, meaning dance of death. And in this concept, death becomes personified as a literal human skeleton, as you can see in this picture here by Hans Holbein. It also represents a literal dance, outbreaks of dancing mania that occurred alongside outbreaks of plague throughout Europe, where people would dance in large groups, oftentimes to the detriment of their health. And it also represents feelings of helplessness in the face of death. For example, in this image, you can see a skeleton playing the drums next to a noblewoman, sort of foreshadowing that her time is coming where she will die. So you never know when death may come for you. It also has a huge focus on the inevitability of death. Everyone will die, regardless of social class or wealth. Everyone is going to suffer the same fate. It also represents the death on an extremely large scale that people alive during the 14th and 15th centuries would have experienced on a daily basis, as well as the fact that the disease could infect anyone at any time, and there was seemingly no way of knowing who would be infected next, as well as death becoming the norm. Seeing so many people die on a daily basis kind of creates a sense of normalcy. And it also serves as a memento mori, a physical, visual reminder of mortality, and that we will all die. So now I'm going to talk about some scholarly perspectives on the dancing mania that kind of inspired this style of artwork, and read some previous perspectives. So the first one that I'm going to discuss is A.J. Kabir's From the Black Death to Black Dance, Choreomania as a Cultural Symptom. Kabir describes the concept of choreomania as the uncontrollable desire to dance. They also discuss the groups of people that would dance for hours and hours on end. And they also heavily focus on how this dancing was looked at in a negative way by the church due to the people's sort of lack of bodily control that they expressed, and the potential for the mania to spread. People would witness this dancing and join in, and seemingly it spread across communities. J.F.C. Hecker, in his book The Black Death and the Dancing Mania, describes dancing as a means of catharsis, a sort of release of extreme grief and stress. And they state that the dancing dispelled the melancholy which had become them with a kind of sensual enjoyment. People were able to express themselves in a way that wasn't, easily accessible in any other outlet at the time. So those are some perspectives on the idea that started the art work of the Danse Macabre. So now I'm going to talk about some scholarly perspectives regarding the societal impact of the Dance of Death, how the concept, the artwork kind of influenced society at the time in the late medieval period. So first, Louisa Ritterhouse and Catherine Eschenberg, in their article Black Death, Plague, and the Danse Macabre, talk about the figurative image of the rampant plague as a death dancing across the land. People of all classes were involved in this together. They were all dancing the dance of death together. And they also reference death as the great equalizer, a sense of togetherness, no matter what class or position you were in. It brought a sense of togetherness, community. Tancredi Herzog, in his writing Plague in the Time of Coronavirus, the representation of the Black Death in arts, discusses how the Dance of Death allowed for a form of more collective thinking, similarly to Ritterhouse and Eschenberg's points. He also mentions that the concept of the Dance of Death gave solace to the poor and reminded the privileged that in the face of death, their prerogatives were worthless. So in the end, it doesn't really matter if you're rich. The things that are going on in this world are kind of pointless in the face of death. So how did the Danse Macabre impact art? Well, we see more visualizations of death as a physical being as a result of the idea, a human being. There is an increase in depictions of the dead and dying, in addition to an increase in realism, so more realistic portraits of the dead and dying that were not as common but prior to this idea of the Dance of Death. And John Aberth says in his book, The Black Death, that a dancing death is less threatening. So this kind of changed the way that people were portraying death in artwork. Additionally, this kind of artwork brought people a sense of comfort by personifying death. People felt as though they had a more positive view of death. Death was leading people physically to a new beginning. And how did the Danse Macabre impact late medieval culture? As I mentioned before, it created a sort of sense of togetherness, that everyone dies regardless of their wealth or their station. It changed the way people viewed their death and their life. In some instances, in a more positive way. It changed the way they lived their lives, whether by being more pious or sort of experiencing life, living it up before they were going to die. And the Dance of Death also served as a constant visual reminder of death. So people were actively thinking about their death much more frequently. And the Dance Macabre, the personification, also allowed people to feel as though they could, in a way, communicate with death. Death wasn't this frightening concept. It was looked at as a person, a skeletal person, and they could kind of express their feelings towards something physical. In conclusion, the Black Death profoundly impacted late medieval society, particularly through the concept of the Dance of Death, which directly influenced many people's relationship with death, as well as the multitude of ways in which they expressed themselves through art. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Bye.